How's it going, guys?
Hi there.
Hi.
Good to see you, Christian. Hi, Howard.
I'm there. Do you see the message that Noel sent a few minutes ago?
Just a few minutes ago, yeah. I guess we'll have to try to figure out what he's got going on.
Right.
Hey, Ken. Yeah, if Noel has figured out how to do this, then that would save us a couple of steps.
Yep.
As long as it conforms to what we were putting in our bylaws amendment, which I think it will.
Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. There was the resolution calling for specific sites on loading zones at specific sites on West End Avenue and Central Park West. But other than that, I looked. I don't think there were other resolutions calling for loading zones.
It was probably embedded in the bike lane ones.
I looked at the one that was adopted in connection with COVID, and there was nothing in there.
Amsterdam had it.
Amsterdam had it for sure.
Okay.
And you know, we this is on me as much as anybody else. We remember Victor Scalise was approaching us about changing the parking regulations at certain intersections so that handicapped vehicles could pull up to the curb cut.
Yes.
I need us to get back to that. So I'm going to say something about that tonight during new business, and then I'll try to follow up with him and find out exactly what we need to do.
Great.
Yeah. So I had a first tonight. I was paying a Shiva call by Zoom or virtual. Remember Bruce at the hardware store, or used to be at the hardware store? His dad passed away over the weekend. So they actually had a Shiva, sitting Shiva by Zoom. So
Zooming Shiva.
That's interesting. Yeah. You cannot bring cake that way.
I know. That's the. That's what I was thinking too. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Howard.
All right, I'm going to start the webinar. That will allow the attendees to come in and the recording to begin. So we're a couple minutes early, but I thought let the attendees get in, and the prize goes to Ira Gershenhorn as the first attendee. Welcome, Ira. And for once, we have a meeting where the number of attendees is not in the hundreds, if not thousands.
How about that? Howard, did you see that the Long Island Railroad held a press conference this morning to announce an update to the Long Island Railroad train time? Now you can see how crowded the diesel trains are and the history of when the most crowded trains are and which ones you might want to avoid. Pretty
That's helpful.
sophisticated. Yeah, pretty sophisticated.
Did you see the article recently why London's public transportation system is in much better shape than New
Yes.
York's? That
Yeah,
was very interesting as well.
Very interesting. It's nice that a certain country understands how important their transit system is to the future.
Well, also there was interesting that the number one reason was there's no one person responsible. The governor can point the finger at the MTA, that can point the finger at the mayor, that can point the finger at the federal finance. There are just so many.
Yep.
When everyone's responsible, no one's responsible.
You bet.
Andrew, do you want to do the introductions tonight? I think I did it last time. I'm happy to do it. It's just.
The item 1 is your item, so you should introduce that one for sure.
I'll do item 1.
We can alternate, whatever.
Great.
I did speak to Montessori, or I emailed with them concerning tonight's request for a play street. So hopefully they've done everything they need to do and they'll be on board tonight.
And show up.
Yes, and show up. It's like the old adage, you got to be in it to win it. The lottery.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hey,
Hey,
Doug.
Doug.
Hi, Doug.
Howdy. I'm going to have to get a fall Verde Square photo. You know, it's the green.
The leaves haven't changed yet, Doug. Don't worry.
Well, with global warming, I think it'll be, you know. Did I hear that Los Angeles had the highest temperature in the history of record keeping yesterday?
Yeah, higher than
121.
I heard 123, or either it's.
Was that in city limits or east?
Yeah, in the valley.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then in a single day, Denver, I think, broke a record for highest and then lowest.
Right.
So you're getting a
5
snowstorm.
to 25, something like that.
Dropped to about 70 degrees.
But you
Well,
know,
the highest temperature ever recorded anywhere on Earth was in El Azizia, Libya, and I think it was 136 or 7. So that's pretty scary.
That is scary.
it is.
Mhm.
And there was that town in Russia, literally above the Arctic Circle, that reached over 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
They asked them what they usually do in the summer. They said that we usually go snowboarding.
What day of the year was that?
It was sometime this summer. It went over 100
Wow.
degrees there.
Wow.
Scary.
It's snowing in Colorado right now for anyone.
Yeah,
You know, they had
I'm
like
not there. I'm not
they
there,
had
but
like
my parents are, and
an
it's
80 or 90 degree change there or something.
yeah. It was 90 degrees yesterday, and it's 37 degrees and snowing now.
That's really scary.
Yeah.
But snow doesn't stick if it's not below 34.
Well, it's sticking. I don't know when the last time you were in the foothills of the Rockies, but it is definitely sticking there.
Shall we get started? My clock is showing 6:32.
6:31, or yeah, let's
Actually,
do it.
Hang on just a couple of seconds. Hi, Colleen, thanks for joining. Because a couple of our committee members I resent the Zoom link at 5:30, but apparently not everybody got either the original or the other one. So I'm gonna go back and try to resend it one more time. So please give me just a couple of seconds.
Okay.
Oh, shoot. What the hell happened?
Julian, are you going back to school?
Yeah, not this coming Monday, but the Monday after that. Yeah,
You
I'm
will.
trying out blended learning, but I'm in the fourth cohort, so I'll be trying it out in like the second week. But yeah,
I thought Sty wasn't having it in person at all.
there was a lot of people advocating for fully remote learning, but the plan that we've ended up choosing, we had to create an exception model, is basically full remote learning, except the students who opt into blended do their full remote learning from either the gym, the auditorium, or the cafeteria. So the students who are coming into the school building are just sitting with their device inside a space and not actually interacting with their teachers, which is, it's a weird model. There's
So
no
are
other
you
school
gonna
that has
do that?
something like that. Yeah.
It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to go
I
in, or
don't
are
know
you
if
just
you-
going to stay remote?
I'm gonna
Mitch,
go in
why
and
are
try
you
it out.
scowling?
There was a video of an NYU students having a party with hundreds of students in Washington Square Park, and they're
Yeah,
all
I saw that.
together with no masks.
All right, so William Ortiz was able to join us. I'm not sure what happened. I resent all the Zoom links at 5:30 tonight, and still a couple people didn't get them.
Yeah,
So-
I received the link for tomorrow's BCI meeting. So I think maybe you might have mixed the names or the committees, possibly. But
Anything's
I'm in.
possible. But you were in the list, so I don't know why it didn't.
I think that's John hasn't updated the list.
But it was me who's doing it, so we can't blame John on this one. Anyway,
We should begin if we can.
Howard and Andrew, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Yep, we're ready. It is now 6:34. Welcome everyone to the September meeting of Manhattan Community Board 7's Transportation Committee. I'm Howard Yaris, and I'm co-chair of the committee. Andrew Albert is the other co-chair. and
Hello,
he's
folks.
on. And we are going to alternate tonight with the agenda items. I will take agenda item 1, which should go very quickly because it's my agenda item and I'm not proposing a resolution. I'm just, this is more informational. I think we can all admit that the proliferation of deliveries has resulted in a lot of double parking, a lot of obstruction of roads, traffic, unsafe conditions, all sorts of problems. We have adopted resolutions. One in particular comes to mind, calling for loading zones on Central Park West and Weston Avenue. I live on Central Park West. There's literally not one loading zone there. So this is more informational. I'm just interested in people's comments.
Lost your audio.
Looked into this or have done anything.
It froze up for a second. It's
in
back, I
regard to our
think.
request to put in a few loading zones to enable this great increase in deliveries to our done legally. Yep. Okay. We're merely going to be sending a follow-up letter. That's the informational component. I'm just wondering if anyone had a.
Oh, this is freezing up every now and then.
I have one comment. I know that since we now have the protected bike lane on Central Park West, which has reduced parking, it makes it more difficult for when people double park on either side. So yeah, loading zones are called for.
That is definitely an issue. The loss of 425 parking spaces on the east side of Central Park West in the request for loading zones on Central Park West. That makes it a lot more difficult to put that kind of restriction in. But there are some special cases on the street that probably need it, for sure. Howard went out. Maybe he realized there was a problem with his connection and he's probably going to come back in a second.
He's here. He's here.
Oh, he's here.
You're muted. Howard, you're muted.
Just to say, I couldn't hear what the request is that we're talking. If Howard can kind of repeat himself a little bit, I just wasn't sure. It definitely blanked out, and I couldn't hear a lot of what you said.
There is no request. It's just purely informational. The double parking is a problem. We've adopted resolutions in the past, and we're just purely informational, following up with the DOT on these resolutions we've adopted, because it doesn't seem, it's only gotten worse. That's the whole point. And I have to apologize. I'm calling in from a place that's not my home, and the internet may be less reliable.
Howard, has anyone canvassed or spoken to representatives from the buildings along Central Park West to gauge their concern or their interest? Obviously, as Andrew said, they had a lot of concern about the elimination of all those parking spaces. And I think it would behoove us and certainly DOT to take the temperature of the people along Central Park West to see what their interest or objections to loading zones might be.
Well, again, we've already adopted a resolution on this, so this is merely following up. But any information, that's why I asked for information, input, criticisms. If you have any information, I can tell you in my building, people find this to be an enormous problem. My next door neighbor is 100 years old, and I saw her navigating between a double parked car and other parked cars. So it's a real problem where we are. So yeah, any further information would be useful. But again, the whole point of this is just we're following up on things we've already done.
Could I ask Colleen a question? Howard?
Hi.
Oh,
hello.
absolutely. Yes. Go ahead.
Hi, Colleen. You did a pilot on, or in the midst of a pilot, aren't you, on West End Avenue? Can you tell us how that's going?
We did a pilot on what? The loading zones on
Yeah.
West End Avenue? I'd have to get back to the board on that because I don't have any information on that with me. I can find that from our borough engineering division and get back to the board. But I know the board had sent a resolution on this, and I think a follow-up letter is good, Howard.
Okay, we will put that together for you. But it is troubling. I'm just kind of stating the obvious. On my street, literally between 9 and 6, there is never, there's 2 lanes in one direction. There is never use of 2 lanes. I mean, never. 72nd Street, where we just recently adopted a resolution, there is, I thought that the lane of double parked cars was similar to the lane of cars parked along the curb. It was a solid wall. Is the DOT looking at this? We're just curious what the DOT has to recognize this is a problem. I just wondered what they're doing with regard to this.
I mean, when it comes to loading and unloading areas, and especially when we install the bike lane, we look at cross streets to see how we can add to that, being that we've took away, quite a few parking spaces, well, a lot of parking spaces in the area. I would say that, our parking division or our borough engineer division would probably go out there and do the survey to see what locations would be feasible to add those additional loading zone spaces. If we're doing anything right now, I don't believe we are, given the constraints and the lack of resources we have to go out there in the field.
I guess COVID has thrown a wrench into it, but again, when we adopted this resolution, there are 0 loading zones. It is literally impossible for Amazon, UPS, the US Mail, all of these organizations to do their businesses legally where I live. There are zero spots. So it's a real problem, and COVID is the biggest problem we face. But again, to the extent that any resources could be devoted to this, it would be great.
Sure, definitely.
Howard, there's a hand up and some by a person who's also putting something into the chat. So at the right point, you may want to call on folks.
I don't see the hand up.
It's Mark Friedman,
and Bill Ortiz has his hand up. Okay.
And I think Rich Robbins too.
And Rich Robbins. So Mr. Friedman, why don't you go first, then Bill Ortiz, then Rich Robbins. Mr. Friedman, you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, maybe I have to unmute him.
Oh, sorry.
I was in the process of giving that power to you, Howard, but I'll get you.
Sorry.
There.
Okay.
Okay, I think I now have a voice.
Now you can hear, we can hear you.
Good, thank you. Well, I live on West End Avenue, and there is some loading zones have been put on West End Avenue, each alternate street. The east side gets one, the west side gets one. The long and short of it is it doesn't solve any problems because they aren't used. The trucks that you refer to, whether it's UPS or others, I happen to know this because my sons worked at UPS, prefer not to use a loading zone spot. The worst thing that could happen to one of those trucks is that they, in fact, get double parked in. They have no interest in leaving the car in a parking spot. They are told to leave it double parked. You're not solving anything by doing that. You're only taking away parking spots. And I will mention the parking spots, I should disclose I'm a little older. They're actually used by older people. So Howard, your reference to the 100-year-old person that has to navigate the street, it's actually the 100-year-old person who's more likely, or the older person is more likely to need the parking spot rather than the younger people. So that wraps it up.
In all fairness, there's an enormous problem out there. And again, DOT has to look at it. Our idea was loading zones. If they think there's a more effective way to address this problem of rampant double parking, we're all ears at our community board.
Yeah, Howard, as usual, there's at least 10 alternate ideas, many of which I could suggest. Just don't mention loading zones. You keep putting them onto the wrong solution by giving them the answer. They accommodate your request. They feel then they are responsible to the community, but their job should be to find the solution independently. They're the expert. I could tell
100% agreed. Our letter will really make it clear that the problem is double parking. We've had a couple of ideas, one of which is loading zones, but we defer to them. As I've said so many times in these meetings, they are the experts, not I. Who's next? Bill Ortiz.
I just had a couple of questions to point out there. Maybe Colleen may have some of the answers. Do we know of any other areas in Manhattan or even all of New York City, say Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, that are currently using loading zones, and those communities are similar to ours? What has been successful? What have been some challenges? Because I know we're talking about it, it's up in the air, but I like the idea of loading zones so it can be a streamlined process for shipment and deliveries to be done in an efficient manner. Just my fear is that these companies, whether it's Fresh Direct or whomever, would want to park in a very specific area if they have, let's say the loading zones on 62nd Street, but they have a bunch of shipment for the high hundreds. You know, are they really going to go there? Are they going to try to sneak their way through, you know, the hundreds, drop off a couple of trucks and some bikes, you know? So just wondering what we have seen around New York City that has been successful to make this happen, and how we would address concerns of kind of sneaking around the system to accomplish that goal.
See, that's really an excellent question, because I don't know if we did a cross borough impact study to see how effective these are in terms of one area in one particular community board as opposed to other. I would imagine, or at least I would think, a lot of the CBs, they are very unique and different in their boundaries and in terms of the deliveries that they get. And someone mentioned that because of COVID, they've seen an increase in deliveries, which is really very true. But I wouldn't know how successful they have become, but I will find out if there is, or if we have done any initial study, and what the findings were with that. I'll look into it and I will get back to the board. But that's a really great question, if there is some kind of impact studies and how effective it has been in other community boards.
Thank you.
And Colleen, if you could also look at something I've pointed out a number of times on in the case of the Columbus and Amsterdam Avenue loading zones. I knew this was going to be the case. Unfortunately, I was proven correct. If a delivery is being made to, let's say, the west side of 83rd Street, but the loading zone is on the east side, they don't use the east side and walk the delivery across. They double park where the loading zone is not. And I wonder if DOT has done any kinds of studies on compliance with loading zones.
I can find out.
Okay, Rich, then Steve Brown, then Jay Adolph.
So two quick comments on the ticketing of double parked vehicles. I just responded in chat. I saw that Ira Gershenhorn wrote that the police don't enforce double parking. They actually do. They give out a lot of tickets. But for one, the delivery companies factor the cost of the tickets into the cost of doing business. And they also pay a reduced rate if they have a lot of tickets. And I think for me, it's a policy issue of getting, whether it's city council or the state, to come up with some new category of aggravated double parking that can't be reduced down and might get more expensive the more you do it, because it's a real safety hazard.
Aggravated double parking, I like that.
I'll also note
so
that
the other is totally separate issue is on Central Park West. I know 400 parking spots were removed.
425.
And those were all Tuesday, Friday spots. And I had said a year ago when we passed this that DOT should talk with sanitation and see if it might be possible to make half of them Monday, Thursday spots and half Tuesday, Friday, so that we're not losing all of the spots for 2 days a week, but not impacting the other 2 days at all. So Colleen, I don't know if that's something that could be looked into. All right, that's all for me.
Yeah, I'll just note that the city has a policy of the larger the company, the lower the fine.
Yeah, crazy.
Crazy. Steve Brown, you're up.
And I got a couple comments, but I did have a question that I put in the chat. When was that resolution that you're talking about, Howard, that was passed? I'm just curious. I don't
The resolution, I unfortunately I don't have the exact date.
I'm pretty sure it was
I can
September 2018.
I mean, multiple years ago, right? I mean, it definitely hasn't been in the last. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Steve, we all went out and surveyed sections of blocks, and saw where it was appropriate and where it might not be appropriate for the loading zones.
Okay. All right. I did want to offer some information. I printed something out. There is a program that is addressing this on West End. It was put in last year. This is Quam, the DOT. Quote unquote, we're looking at more efficient to utilize curb space and reduce the number of double parked cars. The new parking regulations along the portions of the West End have been citywide residential loading zones. The loading zones will work to provide curb space during daytime and evening hours to allow the pickup and drop off of passengers, as well as loading and unloading of goods, and helping more efficiently to utilize curb space and reduce the number of double parked cars. DOT notified and all the community board chairs and elected officials before implementing, and we will evaluate the effectiveness of over next year and give results. So if you're asking for information, Ken mentioned there is a program. It is a pilot program, and it is supposed to specifically be about this. And my suggestion is, rather than what's going on, why don't you specifically find out what's going on with this program and what is the data? I think that would be the most efficient thing. I live on Riverside. I don't see, I don't experiencing the same things as Howard. I don't see the proliferation of drop-offs. I think West End, actually, all the cars that I know, I can't speak to drop-offs, but vans, I mean, people dropping off are using these curbsides. There was a lot of car space taken away, again, very frustrating, but I would do that before we're sort of advocating doing something else. I'll speak to West End, not on Central Park. My other 2 points are, I just want to caution that we have a very delicate ecosystem that we speak on a lot of different topics. And I think the ecosystem of parking spots, although to many people is not a great topic, these are people that are first responders. These are people, this is, a third of the people, and they're very nervous. And I would just be very nervous continuing bringing up topics that somehow end up leading in more parking spots. And I think there's you know, we have all got behind the bikings because it made sense. That will get rid of parking spots. I think we have to take in all the people, and I would just be cautious about talking about loading zones and this zones. It feels like maybe we're going back to that period of time where there was a lot of conflict on here, and I'm going to voice that. I speak to people that have to commute out of the area, nurses going to different areas. They are parking and they need these parking spots, and I just think we have to stop thinking of them as casual things to take away. And I think that for the last 100 years, there's been people, since cars have started, there's people double parking. I don't think it's any worse or any better. I think it's an issue. And I think Rich's idea and other ideas, but I'm just not for taking away parking spots in the middle of a pandemic in which we sort of talk about often that this is a lot of issues. And I'd like to just make that point. We've got to be consistent. It's not the time to be doing that. And I'm actually against even sending the letter, because the letter, it's 2 years ago. It's not a recent, I don't think it absolutely, this resolution reflects modern thinking. And I personally wouldn't even want you to send a letter, just so you know, because I don't think that this resolves the thinking of this board as we speak. We have to stop getting rid of parking spots. I don't think loading zones are you know, there's other ways to look at it. And we have to stop piecemealing the loss of loading of parking spots.
But Steve, you did bring up a good point, which was raised earlier, which is we should get an update from DOT on how West End Avenue and the changes that were made there are
You have a
working.
program. I mean, you have a program. Everyone knows about it. Howard, the two of us chatted once about it, so you know it's here. You know, if you want a next step, get the update on the program.
Absolutely, it's Colleen, and I will find out from my colleagues when we can do that, okay?
Thank you, Colleen.
Great. And we'll note that in the letter. Jay Adolph.
Yeah, first of all, let me say I second everything that Stephen just said, and a couple of observations, partly as a preface to a question that I have for Colleen. I live on West End Avenue, and I live in the zone, the 87th to 95th Street zone that is still a quote open street. West End Avenue, especially in that area, is a logistical nightmare. Prior to the pandemic, West End Avenue was narrowed from two lanes on each side to one, making drop-offs and double parking a dangerous activity. And now with the streets, they call them open, I call them closed, to all but local traffic, 12 hours a day. Local traffic, people who have to do pick up and drop off and turn to go on to Riverside or Broadway, plus the normal deliveries, plus sanitation vehicles. And now, as the school year starts, we have a slew of school buses in the morning and in the afternoon. It's an absolute nightmare. So Stephen's observations, or excuse me, Andrew's observation for somebody, whether if it's DOT, fine, looking at West End Avenue and seeing what's happened is absolutely essential. Plus, for a few block area, Con Ed has been there closing down what little space there is for the last couple of months. I think they're replacing gas mains along there. So as a preface to my question to Colleen, we're now in stage 4. Let me add to that observation, living along West End, the closed street, virtually nobody uses that street except a limited number of pedestrians every now and then who could easily be walking on what are some of the widest sidewalks in our district. So with the city being stage 4 at this point. What is the schedule for closing these open streets and restoring them back to the way they were before? Not to mention the unintended consequence of traffic being a total mess on Broadway, turning on 96th Street, access to the West Side Highway. I mean, it's created a catastrophe. So when are they going to restore these streets to their normal usage?
Sure. So the closed street concept, again, that is a program that we initiated over the summer to allow for the social distancing during the COVID pandemic. It's my belief that, of course, the streets are going to be reopened. I don't know exactly when they're going to be reopened, but once I have more information, we'll share that with all the community boards, because we have closed several streets to allow for social distancing in Manhattan, and these streets are maintained by the partners that we have who come out and who put the barricades out and then remove the barricades after the closure has ended. So I'm sure when we have that, or when I have that information, it'll be announced. Okay.
On West End Avenue,
Yeah.
it's unfortunately the police that have had to absorb the job of putting up and removing the barricades. And that's simply another factor in why it seems so inane to leave those streets so-called open at this point, especially with these wide sidewalks. Frankly, social distancing was never a problem.
And Jay, we have an item about a request for a neck down, because when school starts, West End Avenue is going to be a very different kind of street, obviously.
Yes. Can I just say this was merely supposed to be an update on a follow-up letter on double parking problem, and not a general discussion about open streets. So it's going way off on a tangent.
Good luck with that, Howard.
Good luck with that. I know. Tangents are where we love to go. Ken.
Yeah, I was originally going to talk about parking, but I once again, I feel like I'm living in a different city from Jay. I'm not seeing a catastrophe.
Well, you're rapidly trying to create the city you want.
I am speaking, Jay. I would, hundreds of people a day, thousands of people perhaps, are enjoying the open street on West End. And I know for a fact it's a safer street. So I would love to see it become permanent, and also the cross streets like 103rd. But back to parking, we have I mean, it would be great in the best of all possible worlds to provide free long-term car storage for people on our curbs, but we also have a rampant double parking problem. And we know that double parking is very dangerous for all street users. And we also know that providing free parking to people is one of the main incentives for owning a car and using a car. So do we as a board and we as a city really want to be encouraging car ownership and usage, particularly at this time when we're trying to get people on bikes, get people back on mass transit? So we have a choice. It's a question of free car storage or doing something to make our streets function better.
It's actually pretty limited free car storage, and there are any number of people that must have a car. My feeling is let's make the transit system as great as we can, as affordable as we can, and as easy to use and safe as we can. And that's how we get people out of cars. But the person that's driving to a job in Oradell, New Jersey, for instance, or way out in Hauppauge, some people need a car. We don't have to penalize our residents who actually happen to need a car.
Well,
I suggest a real quick thing here. Maybe the chairs could call on the 3 remaining hands or 2 remaining hands.
2 remaining.
and then sort of wrap up at the end rather
Yeah,
than.
we really need to move on.
Yeah, we needed, this is just an informational. Roberta and then Barbara.
I had my hand up and I kind of annoyed that you called on somebody twice before you called on those of us who haven't spoken. But I'd like to move this on. I think we need to get information from Colleen. We have a agenda that is long, and we've almost been 30 minutes on this.
Yes,
Agreed.
indeed.
Barbara.
Yeah, I not to belabor this, I just want to say that I agree with Steve Brown's comments. I am not in favor of writing a letter. I think if a letter does go out, it should be a vote of the committee, which is how, in my opinion, all letters that are written by committees are approved by the whole board. They're not written by one chair or two co-chairs. And that's what I'm asking for.
Barbara, point of information. This is not a policy. This is really reiterating the resolutions we've adopted.
I appreciate that, Howard, but this was a resolution that was passed over 2 years ago. And you don't send a follow-up letter without sending it to committee members to ask them for approval, in my opinion. That's all.
Yes, if it's something new, but this, again, we're just moving on. But the point is that this is a resolution that hasn't been acted on by the DOT, and we're merely asking for the status of what they're doing. That's all that this letter is going to do. If we just can't ignore the resolutions, I think actually that would be inappropriate.
Well, you don't have to accommodate, but my request is that we vote on this.
And it's not just the letter on the status of the loading zones. It's also, as you have heard, a status on West End Avenue and how the new arrangement has worked out.
Again, it's merely a follow-up. I debated whether I should even put it on the agenda. So we're going to move on to something new, which is a request for a neck down at the southwest corner of 96th Street and West End Avenue next to the public school. Is there someone here to speak about that?
I am.
Oh, Roberta.
Go ahead, Roberta.
So the problem with the neck down, and Colleen well knows, we've asked for this. We had a woman was almost killed at that spot. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten her name, but she has come before the community board many times to explain about that street. She and I and Colleen worked. We tried to get the board of her building to, what happens right now is if you have a neck down, the building on the corner with the neck down signs some kind of agreement with DOT that they will maintain and care for the neck down. Unfortunately, the neck down is next to the school and the school cannot sign this waiver. I had recently seen a resolution passed by Board 4, which I forwarded to Howard, and I'm not sure if I forwarded it to you, Andrew, but I'm sorry if I didn't.
Okay.
Anyway, they have a resolution with a similar situation where they requested that DOT agree to do this without the school signing on it. There is a local community that are willing to work on it, but they do not have the ability to sign a contract with the city. So I suggested to Howard that we have a resolution similar to what Board 4 had. And the local community has agreed that they will work to clean the sidewalk and maintain it during the time when the school is closed.
Roberta, do you happen to know if the agreement that you're speaking about with Board 4 had any special requirements after, for instance, a snowfall or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I can get you a copy. The resolution is very simple. It was
okay. And has it been approved by DOT?
I don't know. I don't know what the status is.
Oh, okay. Because we've been asking for this for ages.
I know, but
before somebody was killed there, in fact.
Right. But the problem is that they were told, and there's been a group on the block that has been working hard to get this, but they were told that a local building had to sign a contract, and the building that this woman lives in was not willing to sign the contract.
Yes.
Whereas, my building would be willing to sign a contract, but because of all the new building that's going on 96th Street. So I don't know if Colleen knows the status of that resolution. The resolution was just about, I think, maybe June or July.
So CB resolution is CB4 resolution is relatively new, and right. I think they sent it to us maybe about a month and a half ago.
Right.
The thing is, and Roberta and we were working together to see if we can get something accomplished at that corner. And I do recall with the neck down, we need a maintenance partner for snow removal and garbage removal. And we tried to get the building to help us with that, but because of the language with the agreement, and there were concerns about liability, and I think the building did not want to take on that task in terms of becoming liable with anything,
right.
if anyone should trip and fall and hurt themselves. Yeah.
And the PTA wasn't willing to take it on because there are times when there's nobody around the school.
Right, and I think it had something to do with their contract and union. Something.
Right.
So where are we? We're nowhere still?
I just think it can't hurt.
Andrew, can somebody, pardon my ignorance, can somebody describe a neck down?
It's where the sidewalk is extended out so that it's cars have to go around it, and it also you've seen them. They're these big wide, sort of a circular thing at the end of a sidewalk.
There's now a
it narrows the side street, and it also makes it easier to cross the crossing distances.
I mean, there were flexible barriers that widened the left turn from West End onto 96th for the access to the highway.
But that doesn't. That's a different kind of thing.
We're talking about on 96th Street. So this would be for cars exiting the parkway, in the northbound direction and getting off at 96th Street.
Southbound.
Going north, going east.
Going east, right. We want to protect people at the corner of West End. So it's for eastbound traffic on 96th, basically.
Would that then be forcing the 2 lanes that come off there into 1 lane before they get to West End?
No, but it narrows the street.
No, it will slightly narrow the street.
But it makes
and of course, if you're making a right southbound turn onto West End, you'll have to be in that southernmost lane, obviously.
But there'd still be 2 lanes.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of us, a whole bunch of us have stood there. Marissa may have also been there, but I know Helen has, and I know that Andrew has, and I'm not sure who else from the board has, but we have stood there at school crossing times. Maybe Mark has also been there, and we've watched. I've been there at other times as well and watched. The crossing guard has a really hard time maintaining safety for the children crossing the street. It can't hurt to ask. And the fact that Board 4 has already a request in may make our case a little stronger. So I'd like to propose a resolution that Community Board 7 requests a neck down at that particular corner.
I second.
Have we ever done this in a resolution before, Roberta? I think we have, but we can certainly do it again.
I think we have. We may already have resolutions about that particular intersection.
So are you going to recommend language as to the maintenance of this, or just say as per the agreement with Board 4, or how are you going to word it?
Why don't I get Board 4's resolution, which I unfortunately don't have in front of me, and the language was very simple.
Okay, when would you get it? Because if we're approving this tonight.
I'd get it in the morning.
Okay, so do you want to?
It was basically it was just basically not talking about maintenance. It was just talking about the DOT would provide and agree to put the neck down.
Okay, anybody have any comments on this before we move this? Because I think we've been through.
Roberta said she wanted to raise a resolution. I want to second it, and I want to say that we should vote on it tonight and not wait for language. It seems simple enough that we can write our own language. we propose a neck down on 96th Street.
Well, you can't,
And
you either have to vote or not. You can't vote on, if the resolution comes about tomorrow, we can't vote on it.
Well, the
that's why
resolution,
we write it
So
today and
you
vote
can
on
do
it.
it now.
the resolution I'm proposing is that we request a neck down without a sponsor for the corner of
Southwest corner.
languages.
Southwest corner of 96th and West End along 96th Street.
Without the need for a signature.
Well, actually, the resolution, the proposal has been proposed and seconded.
Seconded.
So if it's okay, we can all vote.
We can.
All those in favor?
Howard, you still have hands raised. I don't know if, okay.
Oh yeah, they are raised.
Is there a discussion on this issue? If not, put your hand down. Otherwise, I will call on you. Well, Roberta
Can you do the lower all hands thing? Because
I thought we raised our hands to vote yes.
I had my hand up to make a comment.
my thing says all hands are raised, so I can't. It's up already somehow.
Okay, Ken, make your comment and then we'll vote.
Okay, I just wanted to speak in support of this. It's just so crazy that we are prevented from having life-saving infrastructure such as this for want of a private maintenance partner who has to get insurance and assume liability. This is just crazy. The city should change its requirements on this, but in the meantime, we should vote yes on this resolution.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor, either raise your hand. Is someone on the committee willing to act as the secretary for this meeting?
I hope somebody's taking minutes.
Is there someone who would be kind enough to volunteer?
Only you can see the hands. Only Mark and Andrew and
Actually, I see two hands in the attendees, and I'm not sure what that's about, but.
Yeah,
the rest of us can't see the hands.
I'll just raise it because I can't see. It says lower all hands, so I don't have the option to put mine up. It thinks it's up, so I'll just vote.
Okay, we have.
Should we let the two community members speak?
Yeah, maybe we should.
Okay.
Andrew, as a co-host, you don't have the raise hand option.
I don't have what option?
You don't have the raise hand option, Andrew.
I figured I didn't
raise your own hand yet.
Something was missing. I just have to raise it
Andrew
physically.
and Howard and Mark have to virtually raise their hands.
We have to do it.
Yeah.
We have to do it physically. Yeah.
So it looks like Mark Friedman, who was actually Daniel Friedman, and then Ann Watkins had her hand up as well. Those are the two that we saw before the lower hand.
They can't vote. They can't vote.
I understand, but I understood the chairs were going to call on them for a brief comment.
Yes. Mark Friedman, a brief comment.
Okay, Mark, thank you for ensuring that the community gets some input into these discussions. And for clarification, it's Mark Daniel Friedman. My friends call me Daniel.
Got it.
Okay. Essentially, two things. You know, I like anything that will calm the traffic at that intersection. One of the major problems, aside from the fact that all the infrastructure from the neighborhood has been moved onto 96th Street, and that's what causes the real problem. It's also that when they did the calming of West End Avenue, they made one lane, and then suddenly you get to 96th Street, and the one lane in each direction explodes into two lanes, so everybody switches into the left turn lane, right turn lane, I gotta make a move lane, all at the same time. So it's a recipe for disaster. That said, if you wanna do the curbs, the expansion of the curb, which would have a calming effect, why isn't a little bit of pressure put on people like Fetner who are getting buildings on that block for free? Why isn't pressure put on someone else to pick up that responsibility? The school can't do it. We all understand that. But the
Mr. Freeman,
developer,
Mr. Freeman, if I could interrupt, both to move this along and to answer directly, CB7's resolution on the Fettner project raised as one of its conditions that they work with the Department of Transportation to be the partner for that neck down intersection. And so we've used whatever leverage we can in that regard. The other person who, so thank you. We're thinking quite alike. The other person, Howard, was Ann Watkins. Do you want to call on her?
Yeah, I don't see her hand up. Ann Watkins?
Oh, hi.
Oops.
See my, can you hear me, Mark?
Now we can, yes.
Now we can. You're breaking up quite a bit.
Okay, good. Thank you all so much for your work on this. I think that that intersection in particular is a really tough one for us on the Upper West Side, with cars, you know, flying through, and with the school there and all of us.
Oh, you're breaking up.
Well, I think you're gone. Do you
Yeah.
want to?
Do the,
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm inferring a thumbs up, though.
Just so everybody is aware, we have repeatedly asked for speed cameras at West End and 96th also from a variety of angles. That is a very, very unsafe intersection for a variety of reasons. People speeding down, trying to beat the light, people trying to make the turn northbound and then west on 96th. There's a host of issues there. You can't do enough for that intersection. So I think we should vote on this.
Let's call the question. All those in favor, either raise your hand by hitting the lift hand or raise your hand physically. Let's see here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 raised virtually, 2 more physically. So it's 12. All hands down.
10.
Did you count Ira
10,
Mishnek?
10. 8 plus 2 is 10. Sorry, yes?
You have Ira Mishnek as an attendee, and he raised his hand.
Who didn't raise his hand?
Ira Mishnek.
Non-committee.
He's non-committee.
Yeah, this is just committee members.
Yeah.
So we have 10 voted in favor. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? 1. So we have 10. It passes the committee 10-0-1. Non-committee member. Sorry.
Hang on. I think it's 10-0-3. I had Barbara, William, and Jay as abstaining. Is that correct?
Oh.
Yes.
10-0-3.
10-0-3-0.
Okay, 10-0-3-0. Non-committee members. Andrew, can you do this count because I'm recording the vote?
I got it. I've got Shelley and me with physical hands, Cindy, Christian with virtual hands. So that's 4 in favor.
You have Ira also.
I don't see Ira. Where is he?
Attendees list.
Okay, so that's 5.
Thank you, my dear.
Okay, all those opposed? Christian, is your hand, you are against this resolution?
No, I forgot to lower.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay. So we have, what was it, 5?
Looks like 5-0-1-0.
Okay. 5-0. Who was the abstention?
Steve Brown.
Okay. 5-0-1-0. Okie doke. Andrew, do you want to do the next resolution?
Sure. We're talking about the everybody knows where the tragedy occurred by 730 West End Avenue.
Andrew, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt for 1 second.
Sure.
It's not 730 West End Avenue. It's a little further up. It's actually the corner of 97th Street.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's 97th, not 96th, and there is no 730 West End Avenue, as Jane Thompson was very kind to point out to me. So it's I'll get you the exact address. It's the Paris Apartments is the address, but go ahead. But anyway, just
It's
in
the
case somebody-
southeast of 97th and West End, I believe.
Exactly right.
The Paris is 752 West End.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thanks, Shelley. But everybody knows where we're talking about. It was supposed to be totally free of vehicles to allow for visibility for cars moving west on 97th and turning south on West End, so we don't have another horrific murder there. And unfortunately, whatever means have been used to daylight this space are being just ignored, and trucks are parking there, vehicles are parking in that space. So we are requesting DOT to put in boulders or any kind of, I think they're called boulders, but DOT may have a fancy word for these.
Where exactly is this, Andrew?
This is the southeast corner on 97th of 97th and West End.
There are now 2 boulders there.
There are, but there's no boulder on the avenue side. And so trucks are, believe it or not, pulling into the intersection and backing in between the
Yes.
boulders and the curb.
Yes.
I thought we
So we
requested
need
this
one more
already.
boulder.
Which is already a very unsafe move, but can you imagine?
Honest to God, you can't make this up.
So can I jump in? We've raised this many times, and I know, Colleen, you've been working on this, and there's the issue of just what you can do. But what DOT has done is made this intersection more dangerous by completely blocking sight lines from 97th Street into the intersection, where it used to be small cars parked there. It was daylighted to make sure there was visibility, and now large trucks are using that space. Something has to be done to prevent trucks from backing into that spot.
So it's Colleen from DOT. We did put in the granite block, and I think there was a request for another one. And the reason why we cannot put the other one is because the sanitation truck, I think it had to do with something with the sanitation truck would not be able to get at that corner as well. If I'm not mistaken, I think there was a safety issue with pedestrians as well. But I have to go back to my email and see what it is, because I did respond to the community board about that. And I think Lisa Orman and I were talking about this a while back. We were going back and forth to see what we can do to make it much better. And I mean, you know, the trucks really shouldn't be there. And again, it goes back to enforcement. I think the regulation is a no standing.
No, it's not enforcement. The PD has been there. The PD uses that spot themselves. We can't rely on them to enforce. They're not going to do it. We've seen over a period of months that they're not enforcing it and trucks are going there. If we're relying on
Can we
enforcement,
put something in place there that stops a truck from backing into that area?
Let me see how creative we can be.
We certainly don't want another Cooper stock on our hands.
Even a
We
planter.
don't want anything at all.
No.
I was there today, and I did see the boulders that are on the side street side. But you're right, there are none that would keep a truck from backing into the space.
As unbelievable as that movement would be.
Even if you put some rubber stanchions that would stop them, but would let the sanitation trucks come by.
Colleen, are you going to get back to us on what is possible for this location?
Definitely. I will.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have a request. Yeah.
Nope.
Anybody else on this? Okay. Nope. We have a request by the Morningside Montessori School for a play street on 100th Street between Broadway and West End Avenue. They submitted this request several months ago, and I told them when our September meeting would be. So is anybody from Morningside Montessori in the audience today? And I'm assuming meeting notices went to them. Mark, I'm guessing that happened.
I I was not aware of a particular request going to them, but the agenda's been up the way it always is. And it was an e-blast about it as well.
And I told them the date of the meeting over a month ago. We could revisit it if.
I mean, I'm not from there, but I was speaking to a friend today whose kids go there, and I know that it's something they're really looking forward to. I don't know why there's no one on the call right now, but I think it's important to keep kids safe. I can't speak to all the details because it's my kids.
I did speak via email with somebody from the Montessori school and asked if they would have both ends of the block staffed in case somebody either with an accessorized vehicle or an emergency vehicle needed to get through, and they said absolutely. And that I said, will they be in contact with the school? And they said absolutely. So they will have.
Yeah, Colleen, I'm kind of surprised they're not here too, because they reached out to me as well, and I gave them all the details. And Penny, I know Penny added them on the agenda. But what I will share with the board, with you and Howard, is the link that we have been advising all schools to go to and apply through the Department of Education for the outdoor learning program. So I will share that with both you and Howard and copy Mark on it. And if the school contacts you, please share that link with them so they can also apply through that for the open school outdoor learning, okay?
Absolutely, but I'm just so surprised they're not here tonight.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't pass it without them here.
I see Cindy's hand in case you want
to. Sure, Cindy.
Yeah, I'm on the board of another school in the district, and we didn't come to transportation because we were told to use that link. So we aren't doing what the normal procedure would be. We were just filling in like what the city has told the heads of schools to do is to just go directly through them through that link. So what Colleen's saying, I think, is what the schools are understanding now.
Cindy, this was for a play street, not for outdoor learning.
I think it's all the same thing though. I think they're treating it all the same. Because for us, we don't really want it for outdoor learning. We wanted, some closure of the street to allow for kids to come in and, give them space to maybe have mask off time and things like that, not to set up desks or anything. I think that my understanding from my school is that that's the way we were going. We weren't going through the community board. Mark and I spoke about this a while ago, and we were kind of the school was trying to feel its way through. And then once we saw the link, we just decided that that's the instruction we were given, was to go that way. That's all I think that's probably why the school.
I hope you're right, because otherwise they're going to lose a month.
I don't think the procedure anymore is to go through the community board.
Even for just a play street,
not
outdoor learning.
So. That's the understanding I was.
Yeah, Cindy's correct on that. Yeah.
I think so. That's right.
So the DOT will grant these requests without input from the community board?
I don't even know if it's the DOT at this point.
No, it's going through the DOE. It's going
through
the DOE. Yeah.
DOE.
Is it on the DOE website?
I just shared the link with you, Mark, Andrew, and.
Yes, I got it. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
So the question then is,
it's being handled.
Does DOE reach out to the community board?
No, the city has a process to either reject those applications or approve them.
Yeah.
So let's make sure.
They've approved a bunch apparently already.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So Sarah, if you're in touch with somebody who is from that Montessori school, I'm going to forward the link to you. Maybe you could send that to your contact. And then if Andrew or Howard could send the same link to whoever it was that you were in touch with, then we will have done our job, I think.
If you could send it to me.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you. Thanks, Shelley.
Okay, why don't we move on to the next item, which is the review of the district needs statement. Andrew and I have revised this. We could send out the revised version to the committee. Cindy, when does
That'd be great.
Excuse me?
That'd be great.
Yeah, Cindy, when does this have to be done by?
I was hoping that everybody would get it to me before the steering committee meeting, because otherwise you're going to be shamed at the steering committee meeting.
Okay, we will send this out, and if you have any comments, criticisms, questions, alternative language, just let me know. I'll do this
by tomorrow.
It's definitely updated in many ways. Let's put it that way.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much.
And we cleaned it up.
That's great.
Okay, so that takes care of the district needs statement. The next thing is follow-up on outstanding business, including restaurant seating and curb usage. I'll just open the floor to this. I'll just say one thing off the top of my head. The restaurant seating, I think, is a big success. It's kept a lot of restaurants in business, and I, for one, hope it continues. And I think our community board should help restaurants in any way we can. So there's that issue and any other issue that people want to bring up under new business. It's better to bring it up.
And I heard on the news today that a very sad statistic, if we don't get indoor dining by the cold weather, we may lose 65% of restaurants in New York City.
It's pretty shocking.
I
Pretty
can tell
damn
you,
shocking.
as co-chair of BCI, I can tell you we've been, we've been encouraging this, beyond October 31st. Andrew with the Hospitality Alliance has been encouraging
He's done
this.
a great job.
And of course, they're suing the state and the city now because they're not
Restaurants
allowing
in Brooklyn and Staten Island are suing, yes.
Right.
And the Hospitality Alliance.
And I know the mayor last week said that they will come up with guidelines this week, but I'm not holding my breath.
I think the governor and the mayor are feeling the pressure.
Yeah.
Any other new business?
I had just a
Elizabeth,
quick announcement.
Elizabeth is speaking, but it's
Oh,
not very loud. Maybe a little louder, Elizabeth.
Vote on or talk about we should do in consultation with BCI.
Elizabeth, can you repeat that? You were very low.
Yeah, you're very low.
So I don't know what, can you hear me? Is that
Barely, yeah.
So sorry, this is the first time in 6 months I've had technical issues. My comment is just that I think anything we do should be in consultation with BCI. Christian, I know you're on the call tonight, but when it comes to the dining issue, I think we need to do that jointly.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Okay, we have two hands raised on this, Steve Brown and Jay et al. Steve?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the issue that I briefly brought up in the board meeting and hope to either put on next month or address, but I find that there's a really big problem with people driving the wrong way on the bike lanes. And I think it's exacerbated now because of this exact issue, because you have, excuse me, something was falling in my lap. Now that you have, it's sort of tied to this issue. And now that you have, well, it's even worse because now that you have the restaurants with the portable areas, they're right abuffed on it. I can tell you that last week, I took a ride from 6 to 8 up and down just because I kind of wanted to see what was going on. I couldn't finish the run. I mean, I had never felt, I admit this during 6 and 8, so maybe there's a lot of delivery foods, but it was unmanageable. It was extremely dangerous. And on a couple of occasions, I sort of pulled over out of frustrations and I was talking to waiters and waitresses and they said they're terrified because they only look the one way when they're sort of coming across because that's the natural thing to do. And in one case, I had to run out and say, stop, because I think they were going to hit a waitress. I think it's a potential time bomb. And I don't want, I'm not a fatalist.
Steve, are these bikes you're talking about or scooters or skateboards or what?
It's mostly, I mean, it's any transportation I'm against. It's mostly bikes. And I will say, unfortunately, it's a lot of the delivery guys. And to Rich, I mean, Rich can join in. I think it's complicated. I don't want to demonize people. And I don't even want to come, I just want to point out, maybe there's a constructive way and I don't want to demonize people, but it's a fact. It's a fact that this happens consistently. And I'm telling you that what's going to end up happening is, and I don't, again, want to be, you're going to hear about somebody's trying to deliver food or snapped out to go to the bathroom. They're going to be hit. And now that you have the motorized ones, they are coming really fast. And I'd like to either ask that it be put as a on the next month. And I come to it from a constructive manner. I don't know, maybe there's I think I brought it up. If there's a herd mentality to police people, let's do it. If there's a way to do I love New York and stop going the wrong way, let's do it. I do think that it might be interesting to tie in with BCI because I do think a letter to restaurants telling them we are asking for you to instruct your delivery people not to go the wrong way and be a good citizen could be an interesting idea as well. But You know, instead of coming to this as I want tickets and want this, I just want to point out what I think is a problem. And maybe there's a positive way for that we can do this. There's organizations that reach out to bicyclists, but I just feel it's a problem. I mean, I literally could not finish my ride, and I like to ride around bikes. And although I sometimes support cars, I always support bike lanes, and it's really, really tough.
No, it's true. I've recently eaten outside, both on Columbus and on 2nd Avenue, and I was just amazed at the wrong directions and how many times servers and patrons were almost hit by speeding bikes, scooters, skateboards, and unfortunately even a revel. Yes, they're back.
Okay, next is.
Wait. Let me make a comment on that. Actually, not that many restaurants are using their own bike delivery anymore. It's mostly the delivery services.
Yes.
Those are the ones that we have to
Send it
address.
to the services. I mean, that's
Yeah,
great
right.
news. I mean, let's send it to the services then.
Yeah.
How about we get permission from Spike Lee to use his expression, do the right thing, go the right way.
Jay,
Howard and Andrew, this item is new business and next month's agenda.
you know what? New business and old business and next month's agenda are all merging. So go ahead.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
first I have a request of the chairs, which is I would like to send a FOIA request to the city of New York for the city bike contract and any information that the city has on accidents involving city bike renters.
Jay, you could do that as an individual.
I know I could.
How to do it.
But I think it would garner a little more attention.
They have an absolute legal obligation to pay attention, whether it comes from one person or all 8.5 million.
So you're not inclined to join that?
You could use my name. I just don't know how to do it. You seem to know how to do it.
Actually, I'm sure the city has a process which I can find out.
Great. Thanks.
This should be something anybody can get.
And Howard, part of it, and I know you've told me before that you've gotten generally no cooperation from Citibank when you've asked them to appear before the committee.
City Bike, not Citibank.
City Bike.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I said. I didn't say Citibank. Anyway, for next month's agenda, what I plan to do between now and then is draft a resolution, which I will send to you two chairs, amending the state vehicle and traffic law, particularly the vicarious liability statute. As I'm sure you're aware, in New York State, owners of vehicles are responsible for the actions of anyone using their vehicles with their permission. For a long time, that statute applied to rental car companies as well. So that if I rented a car from Hertz and I got into an accident, which I was responsible for, Hertz was vicariously liable. And the practical effect of that was that a victim of an accident had a viable, financially secure entity that could be responsible to them because they were either a self-insured large corporation or they carried liability insurance. And under the state law, a vehicle is specifically not defined as something that is human propelled, i.e. a bicycle. With the great increase in bicycle use and with the city being and particularly the city council being a supporter of an increase in city bike stations and the increase in city bike, I'm concerned, and I don't have statistics, only anecdotally an assumption that the more bicycle usage you have, the more accidents there will be. And right now, anyone who's involved in an accident with a city bike user may have no viable recourse in terms of insurance or responsibility. So my proposal in the form of a resolution, which I will send to you before the next meeting, would, just for the purposes of the vicarious liability statute, make it apply to companies that engage in the rental of bicycles, and to make sure that we're not talking about local bicycle stores that rent a few. I'll have a threshold for the number of bicycles that they would have to be renting to make them responsible. And the net effect would be that if a city bike rider hits a pedestrian and injures them, that pedestrian will have recourse under state law against City Bike as a corporation. So
Okay,
I just wanted to.
Definitely send it to both me and Andrew.
I will.
Sounds good. Sarah.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to mention for everyone on the committee and anyone listening that we are having an event next Thursday called We Walk, West End Walk. We're just activating the open street there with some civic organizations, artists. Jody Sperling, who's on the Broadway Task Force, will be doing some of her dancing in the street, which she's done every year for the past couple of years. So it's going to be all socially distanced, masks required, etc. But it should be great. I dropped a link in the chat so you can see more information.
Thank you, Sarah. Next up is Barbara Adler.
Hi, I just wanted to mention that now that Revels are back, I think it's time to have them come to a meeting again and address us. The Revels seem to be somewhat out of control. I've seen them in Riverside Park. They're on the Greenway, and they're not supposed to be. So many of them are not following the rules.
You know, I forwarded, did I forward to you, or I did forward to the committee. Revel has been in contact with me, and that this whole
Howard, I think you raised it. We asked you if we could put it on the agenda this month.
Okay, we'll put it on for, well, again, it was right before this meeting. We have a whole month. We'll put it on for the next month.
Thank you. I'd appreciate it.
Something else I think should be on an agenda, and maybe we should get somebody from Congressman Nadler's office to be in the meeting with us, because they have raised the issue before. I don't know if any of you have noticed, but the incredible increase in aircraft noise every night. There's hovering helicopters everywhere. There are aircraft that are not avoiding Manhattan airspace, but are flying right over us. It's gotten to an unbelievable racket lately. And I've looked up and I've used binoculars, and they're hovering over Manhattan, a lot of them. And aircraft that are supposed to be using the rivers to go north-south are, you know, to save fuel or whatever, are continuing to use the island of Manhattan as their route. So I don't know how many else have heard all of these helicopters endlessly, but I know it isn't for traffic accidents every night. So I plan to ask somebody who has experience with the FAA to come to a meeting and speak about the increase in aircraft noise.
Andrew, if I could just jump in really quickly on that. Congressman Nadler has a bill that would block private non-emergency helicopters over the island of Manhattan. So you may want to include that when you reach out.
Absolutely will. That's great to
We
know.
voted for that as a board.
Yeah.
I thought we did, but anyway, yeah.
We endorsed it.
Yep.
Okay, we have, well,
Shelley
Shelley.
Yeah, 2.5 years ago, the Transportation Committee unanimously, and then the board unanimously passed a resolution. It was in behalf of hundreds of seniors on 106th Street. The seniors live, 273 of them, in the Red Oak residence, halfway between Amsterdam and Columbus on the north side of the street. In addition, hundreds additional seniors come to the Red Oak Senior Center. On the opposite side of the street, about the same distance, and both of them are at the summit of, from Columbus and Amsterdam, both streets, there are hills that go up to a summit at the center. And on the opposite side of the street, on the south side of the street, is the adult daycare program from Jewish Home that serves hundreds of people. And the people at the Red Oak was established as a frail elderly senior residence. The people, almost everyone has a walker, a wheelchair, or a cane, or some mobility assist. And likewise, the people who, many of the people who come there, and the adult daycare center. We requested for a crosswalk with and signals that could be used to allow the people to walk across the wide street of 106th Street. It's dangerous for a number of reasons. One, if you're coming in a car from Amsterdam towards Columbus, you can't see the other side. So the part of the other side is where the Red Oak residents would be crossing. It's the same from the other side for the adult care people. On top of that, the people would have to walk in any time, but certainly in the winter, even worse, to the far end of one block to cross and then up a hill. And so it's extremely difficult. This was requested and passed unanimously. We've tried over the past year again. We got letters and from the residents and users. There was a site visit and so on. We need this done, and it affects hundreds and hundreds of seniors in our community who are frail and need this help. Why it can't be done, to me, is a big puzzlement. I think we have to have an answer.
Well, Colleen, is Colleen still on the call?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Shelley.
Hi.
So I was at the site visit we had with Shelley. Initially, when all of this came about, we did look at a mid-block crossing level, mid-block crossing signal. But at the time when we looked at it, we found that the pedestrian level of crossing was very, very insignificant. But then we decided that we would look at a day where it's more significant, where the crossing is occurring. So we agreed, I think it was on a Friday when we came out there and we looked at.
It was supposed to be a Friday, but it was a Monday when, or Tuesday when people actually came.
Okay, so we were there. I mean, we have initiated the mid-block traffic signal study. And as I've informed the community board, all of this is on hold due to the COVID pandemic because the traffic pattern right now is not normal. So once traffic resumes normal in the surrounding areas and for that particular block, we're going to resume the study and we'll get back to you, Shelley, and we'll let the community board know of our findings. I do know how important it is for the mid-block crossing because I saw for myself, you know, that there is kind of a hill, and if a vehicle is traveling, you know, there's that blind side that you might not see. But then again, people should not be crossing mid-block. But I understand that the issue of the elderly and of the seniors having to go to the end of, you know, that intersection to make that crossing to go across the street. So as soon as I have information about the mid-block crossing signal and the study, I'll keep everyone abreast of it, okay?
And the winter's coming before we know it.
I know. Hopefully I'll have a response before then, okay?
If I may comment, the issue is partly because there's a lot of mobility impaired elderly that have to cross. And you're right, it's not very frequent. It's sporadic in terms of like when they have to go for therapy, but they don't need a permanent signal. It can just be an on-demand signal.
And it would be a pedestrian request signal, you know,
Right.
for a request light. It's not always on.
We've talked with DOT for many years about this, and while it isn't mandated because of whatever the federal regulations are. We've worked with DOT to try and get them to understand that the seniors are there. There's a large number of them. They cross anyway. And we definitely don't want one of them getting killed or maimed or harmed.
Yeah, there's a
So
rise in the street that blocks visibility.
And
it's a hill.
And we're not going to try to have 150 people cross just to prove that there's the quantity, you know, and ask them to put themselves in danger.
No, we wouldn't want that.
On Fridays, we have a lot because there are a lot of activities we know going on in the afternoon. So
Yeah, I think it's important to know
Praise
that
Colleen.
traffic. Ooh,
I want to praise Colleen on this because she has been working beyond, you know, there are certain regulations that say you can't do this because of this, that, and the other thing. And Colleen has really met with us on numerous occasions over the last 4 or 5 years. And Colleen, I can't thank you enough. We've tried to do everything, every which way to kind of get this through.
I think it's important to know that, you know, when we initially looked at this, it was denied, but keep in mind that traffic patterns do change, whether it increases or decreases. And, you know, it's every so often we would, you know, be required to take a look at this and initiate new studies as the traffic pattern changes. So this is something I'm glad that we're revisiting again, because, you know, it might, you know, it might be feasible given when we look at the traffic conditions as they get back normal. So, and I will try to get you a response before the winter heads out.
okay, I believe the precinct wrote a letter of support for it.
Oh, yes, yes, they did.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Shelley.
Colleen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Rich, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just a quick thought on this, and then I want to get back to what Steve's comment. But if we can't do studies until things are back to normal, when are things deemed back to normal? And does that mean that it could be a year or more before we can do a study? And again, with winter coming, I don't think there's time to wait until we've gotten back to whatever normalcy we might ever get back to. So I think it's more urgent. And if something could be done right away, that would be great. Back to Steve's comment, I've been begging for years for a joint transportation BCI meeting about the issue of delivery cycles. I completely agree with Steve. We can't have cyclists riding the wrong way or riding on sidewalks. And it's a question of what can be done about it. I don't think we can rely on the police to enforce it. And they are, to a large extent, they are commercial vehicles, and they're under incredible financial pressure. And there are a lot of humanitarian issues with delivery cycles. So I don't think it's as easy as saying we should ticket them. Even though we do need to figure out some way to end the issue. And I think a big part of the issue is you know, the financial pressures are incredible, especially these third-party delivery services pay so little that they basically have to break the law to be able to make any money. And a big part of the problem is that the people who expect food to show up at their door within 30 seconds of ordering it often give low tips. So, and they're also the same people. They could also be the same people complaining about delivery cyclists going the wrong way and riding on the sidewalk. So I think there's a public education component to it. There's a business component to it. There's definitely an immigration and just humanitarian issue of these poor people trying to make a living. But by all means, Steve, it is a massive safety issue. And I think addressing one issue without looking at all the other parts won't be successful. And we need to put our heads together to think through just what can be done and who should be enforcing. Should it be DOT? Should it be, you know, should there be some way of publicizing or coming down on the delivery businesses, the Seamlesses and Grubhubs? Are law changes needed? What can be done to stop it from happening? But it's definitely a more complicated issue than just ticketing. And we need to think through and just try to weigh in holistically on the issue.
Well, thank you. It's clearly a safety issue. And then we're moving on to a similar or even greater safety issue with Doug. Doug?
Thank you. I wanted, actually, listening to so many people's comments, including Stephen Brown and Rich Robbins just now. So I I concur. I ride a city bike often, and I'm happy to be here talking to you safely, because within this last week, I had some very close calls with people that were going the wrong way, and they were at least 2 occasions were delivery guys that were screaming down Amsterdam Avenue, no lights, no reflectors. And actually one individual happened to have a dark bike, dark jacket, and I almost didn't see him and we would have had a head on. Also observed, and I mentioned this to Howard, I was riding down on Columbus Avenue on a bike lane, and there was an e-bike, which was actually closer to a large Revel, looked like an electric, like a Vespa. And he tried to overtake me on the lane. I didn't, because he was so quiet, he pulled up onto my right side and we almost had a serious collision. He skid, I skidded, we both came to a stop, and I basically said, "You're not supposed to be on here." And he said, "No, I'm an e-bike, I'm allowed on here." Well, there was a scooter, he was, it was a very large piece of equipment, and I'm pretty sure he was not allowed on there. So I'm seeing a tremendous amount of reckless behavior, which dovetails nicely into what I'm about to say. I have to imagine that I'm not the only one that has heard and seen this, but it is getting more and more common. There are some groups of reckless motorcycle riders and ATV riders that have been riding up and down Amsterdam Avenue, and I mean literally up and down Amsterdam Avenue, and Columbus and Broadway. It is now nightly.
And Central Park West.
And Central Park West too. Many of these vehicles, because I have taken photographs with a zoom lens, are not street legal. They're motorbikes, they're all-terrain vehicles, four-wheelers. They are doing wheelies. They are going through red lights. They do not pay attention. I have seen them go down on the wrong direction on the avenue, on bike lanes, on sidewalks, doing literally 360s. It's not a question of, in my opinion, I'm not an expert, but in my opinion, it is not a question of if, it's when there's going to be a serious injury, fatality. These are reckless, lawless people. They have to be stopped. I have spoken to many police officers, as well as higher ranking police officers, who have all told me they do not have the ability to pursue. I understand that logic.
Can I just interject, Doug?
Yeah.
When they say the ability, they say the authority. There's a difference.
Well, okay, yes, physically they have the ability. They are not permitted to pursue. It is apparently an NYPD policy. I understand that. I'm not a policing expert either, but this has to be stopped because it's going to result in a death or deaths. And it may be their own lives too, or a combination of. So I've seen this. It used to be more incidental.
They go in groups, Doug. I've heard them. You can hear the din of them blocks away.
Absolutely. You can hear them coming. And by the way, this is not to be conflated or confused with some small groups of lawful riding motorcycles who are following the traffic laws and are street legal bikes. I don't have a problem with those. I'm talking about the ones that are not street legal and are reckless nightly. So again, from my own non-scientific poll of speaking to maybe 4 or 5 different police officers, some commanding officers, they've all said, we're not allowed. Oh, in one incident just last week, a police officer told me that it's even worse than you think. He said, we were on our way with lights and sirens going up Amsterdam Avenue on a call, and we came upon this group. The reckless motorbikers slowed down intentionally to slow down the police car. They then many of them had their iPhones and were photographing themselves with the police car behind them to make it look like the police were in pursuit, which they weren't. When the police officer basically said he had to get on the PA system and said, we are not following you. We're in an emergency call, get out of the way.
Yep.
They were basically harassing the cops and surrounding them. So, and the cops basically can't do anything. So anyway, I would like us to.
So just one question.
Yeah.
When the cops say they can't do anything, if you have 1, let alone 10 or 15 motorcycles going the wrong way on a major New York City avenue, they can't do anything?
Well,
the policy, if I may, the policy of the police department is that they won't pursue because it is believed that in those such pursuits, they end up more in fatalities than not.
And I'm sure that there's a lot of truth to that, because these motorcyclists who are already reckless are absolutely going to scramble and go onto the sidewalk and just, so I understand the logic behind it, but there has to be a smarter way. In the past, I was told that the NYPD occasionally will infiltrate the social media of some of the meetup groups, and then they'll arrest them or stop them where they're meeting up or where they're concluding their ride.
That's the point. Follow them wherever they stop, get those license plates, numbers,
They have
and
license plates. They're non-registered vehicles.
they're non-registered. I see.
Or if they are, they've taken their plates off for the ride.
Yep. And the vehicle that apprehended you in the bike lane, the motor vehicle, did that have a license plate?
I was so frazzled, it may very well have. So I'm seeing a lot of, just concurring with what Stephen Brown is saying, is that there's so many different vehicles taking advantage of the bike lane that should not be on the bike lane, and they're going the wrong way. And it's extremely dangerous. So, and with regard to the delivery cyclists, I've mentioned this to you before. I heard what Rich said. First of all, you don't know that they're not tipping. I'm probably one of the few board members that has had the distinction of actually being a bicycle delivery person in this neighborhood. I don't care about the bicyclists' ethnicity, their immigration status. I want them all to be happy and healthy and wealthy. But if they are going to endanger the lives of anyone on the Upper West Side, they have to be stopped. And if it's a question of eventually having everyone registered, license plates, they all should have helmets.
Absolutely.
They all should have lights, reflectors, and be compliant. It's getting to be, it already is the wild, wild west. And yes, I love to order my food, and I would gladly wait another 10 minutes so that no one gets hurt. Not about in any way hurting these delivery guys and restaurants who need the money. But reckless behavior and is absolutely unacceptable. And I'm getting an earful from every friend, relative, and constituent in this neighborhood. And we have to do something about it on the Transportation Committee. After all, we are the Transportation Committee, and it has to include that subset of things. So it's bad, the more and more bike lanes we have, which is wonderful, we have to have lawful riding. They're going
Doug, would this work for you? If we invite the 2-0 and the 2-4 precincts representatives to be at our next meeting and speak to them about this surge in illegal riding?
I would love it. I have a feeling, and I could be wrong, that this is coming from a much higher authority above the local precincts. I think it's coming from the commissioner in the city. And again, I respect their decision, but because this has exponentially gotten worse, something has to be done. And I'm sure that the police, who are experts, can figure out how to do it.
And I think we should ask them, and let's hear it from them, what they can and cannot do.
Yeah, and by the way, and again, I don't mean, Howard and Andrew, you are the co-chairs of this committee, so I don't mean to usurp any of your authority, but I would love to just know, just from an informal poll, am I the only one that has been seeing these motorcycle riders?
Not at all.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Not at all.
Thank you.
By the way,
Thanks, Doug, for bringing this up. We will pursue.
Yeah, it's simply unacceptable.
It really is. Somebody's definitely going to get killed, and it could be one of them, and I don't want to see that either. But
absolutely not.
You can't speed, much less the wrong way, and go and blow through lights. Somebody is not going to see you in time. These things are fast. Someone's going to get killed.
It also sends a signal. To the extent people see that, I think everyone feels slightly more emboldened to skirt the law on their own. Whether they do it or not is another issue. But when you see rampant law breaking, I think people are just feel like the law is something that you could choose to adhere to or not.
That's why I think people are actually doing it more often and more. I've been seeing distinctly different.
Because there's no consequences.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Mark,
thank you for bringing that up, and we'll definitely address that and Rebel at our next meeting. Ken's hand is up.
Yeah. Andrew?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just amazed that we've been talking about problems with bicyclists and revels and the occasional group of teenagers going through on motorbikes. And yet we're not talking about what's really killing and injuring tens of thousands of people in this city and hundreds in our district. And I don't know, we haven't talked at all that there's an epidemic of speeding now in the city. There's something like twice as many tickets being given out by the speed cameras citywide as before the pandemic. People got in the habit with the empty streets of speeding, and with the streets slowly filling back up, they haven't let up on the gas pedal. And this, is something that is really killing people and really injuring literally 15,000 people a year citywide, and about 400 every year in our district. Why isn't this a topic? Why are the nuisance infractions? And I mean, the solution, I mean, we don't want people going the wrong way on bike lanes, but there's a very easy solution, and that is what my mother and father told me when I was very young, which is look both ways before you cross the street. I do it. I'm sure other people can do it. But how about the topic of what's really killing and injuring people, which is cars running red lights, failing to yield, and speeding?
I'm guessing that because there's laws on the books, the police can enforce those things. What you've heard tonight is things that apparently cannot be enforced, but are likely to kill people.
No, Andrew,
but let me just
interject. Not being enforced.
You just told me
the wrong way down. Wait, riding the wrong way down Amsterdam Avenue, going through the lights, has to be illegal. Period.
You would think.
No doubt about that.
Since the new business was sort of, since Ken mentioned it, I just would like to respectfully respond, which is that I am for all safety, and so this is not mutually exclusive. I don't want to see motor vehicles riding irresponsibly, but I am seeing this. And I will personally, I'll send the committee the videotapes. It is horrifying. They are going through red lights, doing wheelies. They're going to get T-boned, and it's going to happen. I'm really surprised. In fact, one of the police officers told me that they actually do believe they've had accidents, but because they are afraid of getting caught, they don't report. They end up in an emergency room somewhere. But Ken, I'm all with you. I'm about safety all across the board.
Well, this is really, if I could just respond, this is a question of priorities. It's as though, we're Dr. Anthony Fauci, and we're in the midst of a COVID-19 epidemic, and we're worrying about the common cold.
I don't think that's a fair comparison.
200 cc motor vehicle.
I'm just going to say the same thing as Doug. I'm all for arresting every single person that goes through a stop sign. And I get offended every time I hear you try and minimize anybody else's needs that aren't
I'm not minimizing it. I'm just saying.
Okay, guys. Okay, let's.
Ken has the floor.
I'm not minimizing it at all. I'm just saying.
Don't speak for me. Don't speak for me. Don't speak for me.
I'm not speaking for you. I'm speaking for myself.
No,
we should put this in perspective. That's what I'm saying.
They're not in perspective until you want another bike lane. Then it's all thing. God forbid somebody say something different than you.
Ken has the floor.
But if somebody speaks opposite of you.
Ken, can you go ahead?
I think I'm finished. Thank you.
I think the clear message here is we got to enforce all illegal movements.
Yes. Agreed.
That's the key here.
And if you're going to have the police next month, let's talk about that too.
And again, and I'm sorry, I'm not to have the last word here, but again, respectfully to Ken, I am not only talking about bicyclists going the wrong way. I am talking, the particular new business I brought up tonight are heavy motor vehicles, 200 cc's, 150 cc's, that are speeding, doing wheelies, that will kill an individual. I'm not talking about lightweight vehicles. It is an emergency, in my opinion. And if you haven't seen it, Ken, come to Amsterdam.
I have seen it
every night.
I have seen it.
It's so loud you can hear it from your home.
We will speak, we will put on the agenda for next month, have the 20th precinct and the 24th precinct to address the most egregious behaviors. Again, recognizing they do not have the resources to do everything everywhere, to
Right.
how best to deploy their resources so as to keep people safe, to deploy their resources in the most effective manner to stop
Exactly.
activities that endanger people the most. That's what we're going to speak to them about. And how they do that, that's for us to discuss next month when they're here.
Yep.
Not right now.
Mark, did you want to, Mark wanted to say something, I believe. Mark?
Thanks. In the spirit of new business and hopefully, thankfully, to change the topic a little bit, we were approached over the summer by someone who was an expert in the conditions of our streets vis-a-vis handicapped folks who are trying to get from, who often need to use some form of motor vehicle, whether it be a taxi or a private vehicle, to get around town, especially considering how few of our subway stations are handicap accessible, elevator accessible. And one of the issues is that gaining access to the curb, even where there's daylighting, which would be a perfect place for that vehicle to pull in, is prohibited because it is no standing at any time rather than no parking. And so the request that was made to us, and by no means is this the only solution to the problem, but one of the things that was suggested to us is that by taking selected places, curb access, and changing it from no standing to no parking would allow these vehicles to pull in and to access the curb for the length of time it would take to offload a person in a wheelchair. Colleen, I'm wondering if you can help me understand what we would need to do in order to achieve that change in regulation, and what kind of follow-up would be required on our end, either as an individual or a community board, so that we could have enough of these around our district so that the folks could have reasonable or easy access to the curb.
Colleen, are you still with us?
She is, thank heavens.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay, great.
You know, with the no standing, that sign indicates that vehicles, hold on, I'm pulling up the signage, hold on. Okay, so no standing anytime. That indicates that vehicles may not stand at the location. You may not wait or stop to load and unload packages or merchandises at the curb, but you may stop to expeditiously drop off or pick up a passenger. So they can use that. They can use that. And the key word is expeditiously pick up and drop off a passenger. The no stopping is more stringent. That means you can't even stop there at any reason whatsoever. I think with the no parking regulation, which is the sign indicates that vehicles may not park at this location at any time, but you may stop to load and unload packages or merchandises at curbside, and you may stop to expeditiously drop off or pick up some of the passengers. I think with the no parking anytime, if we were to install that regulation, and I'm going to confirm that, you would have people who would park there with placards in the no parking area, as opposed to the no standing anytime.
I think no standing is fine. I can't imagine a police officer would give a ticket to someone letting off an elderly or handicapped person by the curb for like half a minute.
And you can do that. You can do that. You can access the curb to pick up and drop off, but you know, it has to be expeditious. You can't be there for like 10 minutes or more, I would imagine. And it doesn't take that long, you know, for a pickup and a drop off, depending on.
That sounds like even with a wheelchair. Colleen, could you and I follow up on this, and I'll make sure I loop in the chairs, because I want to be responsive to this community member. It's a handicapped person who is.
I'll forward you the regulation that I just read.
Great, that would be very helpful, and I may need to follow up with you on that because I want to make sure we do this right.
Mark, it's Elizabeth here. I left this in the chat, but just on another issue related to disability and access, there have been a number of people who have reached out to me about, again, the outdoor seating and the sidewalk space. And I know this is probably a BCI transportation issue. And Colleen, I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, but I think a lot of people have said that their wheelchair accessibility is very limited, depending on which street they're walking down or avenue they're walking down. based on the streets. And I realize that's, very anecdotal and it's just a few people who have reached out, but I felt like given that you had mentioned this, we should also reference that. So
Thank you.
We have two people from the community who'd like to speak. The first one is Ellen Azerin. Let me see, I have unmuted you. You can go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
And I say this almost with apologies to the very serious matters that I've been listening to taken up tonight, because I think safety is above all, and I acknowledge that. But there is an issue that's been kind of my issue forever, and it just seems to get dropped between the cracks between the various agencies that have jurisdiction over Central Park. I'm a bicyclist. I'm on the west side. I go from the west side to the east side on a regular basis, and we keep asking for some kind of dedicated, safe bike access across the park. CB7 has taken it up. The Transportation Committee has talked about it. It falls into Parks and Recreation. It's my understanding that CB7 did pass a resolution asking for a task force, and I don't think they've gotten back to us. Is there anything or I'll volunteer to do my part in it, to follow up on it, because I don't think it's very high on the priorities list. And compared to some of the things we've been talking about tonight, I acknowledge that, but still we've got 2.5 miles of crosstown that's just blocked off to a very important new form of transportation that is bicyclists. And so I'm forced to either walk my bike across the park or take some ridiculous circuitous route around dirt paths, and I've tried them, or do something that I'm not supposed to do, which is ride on the paths. And even though I do it carefully and safely, respectfully, I'll get off my bike if I have to. I'm doing something I'm not supposed to do, and I don't like that. So what can I do, or what can you do?
Well, we've already adopted a resolution and called on for a task force, so I defer to Colleen to let us know what, if anything, has been going on. Colleen?
I have to be honest with you, there's no movement on this as of yet. And again, it's all due to the pandemic. The board did call for a task force, but I don't believe we decided on whether we would move forward with having a task force. We said we would work with the Conservancy and Parks and look at the area to see what's the best plan that we can come up with to improve the area. And we would share it with the community board.
So am I correct? I'm sorry, am I correct in understanding that it's been deferred because of priorities? Because I would argue that it is precisely.
No, it hasn't been deferred because of priority. It's just because of COVID. A lot of projects have, been put on hold.
Yes, and my answer to that is it's precisely because of COVID that we've seen such a tremendous increase in bicycles as a means of transportation, thus the Transportation Committee. And we haven't provided for them as adequately as we might.
And we have been working citywide to install more bike lane miles. I mean, we're doing 38, 39 crosstown. We just did 61st, 62nd, which is temporary. So.
And I'll add that, Colleen, you're going to be working on 72nd Street very shortly, right?
That's correct. We'll be looking at that.
I totally acknowledge and appreciate all the things that have been done. I'm specifically talking about the 2.5 miles that block access on the Upper West Side that is called Central Park. And must that be totally ignored? I commend all of the new bike lanes. I commend everything you have done. This is not to criticize any of that. I just would like to get some movement on this.
I put my hand up.
Ken?
Okay. How about, given that the city is putting up emergency bike lanes on many streets, How about just the DOT and the Conservancy and Parks getting on a Zoom call and figuring out a couple of, for the moment, emergency crossings of the park on a couple of paths that would do it for now?
Sure, I will discuss that with the Conservancy and Parks.
Thank you.
And how will we hear back from you? Could Colleen just to not let it go?
I'm always in touch with the community board. And you should always check the community board transportation agenda.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just Colleen, as Ms. Azerin said, this is not something that should be done when we're not being occupied by COVID, which is the top concern. This is part of the response to COVID, putting in safe bike lanes to allow people to get around safely. So I see it as part of the response to COVID. It's not as something that we'll get to after COVID. Anyone else?
Peter Arnson had his hand up before. I don't know if he's still with us.
I don't think so. Anyone else? Well, it seems like we have an interesting October meeting planned.
Yes, indeed. Thank
we'll
you,
put together an
everybody.
agenda, and we have quite a few things. And if there's nothing else, motion to adjourn.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for
Thank you all.
attending. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Watch those neck downs.